Thank you very much. Well, in thinking about a few words this evening, it was something of a challenge, not knowing quite what the situation would be and what would be appropriate. So I decided to stick to the core business. So it's a spiritual reflection. And it's based on the story of the disciples on the way to Emmaus. In our journey of life, we experience disappointments, doubts, times of sadness and disillusionment. We can experience crisis of faith, loss of hope, and temptations to despair. We have some negative experiences in our lives. We can become dispirited, like the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. The journey of Emmaus is our journey. We need our youthfulness of spirit to be renewed. I was thinking about this need today as we go through the trials of the coronavirus pandemic, the challenges and serious influenza that is afflicting many. Then too, there is the arrival and confusion around artificial intelligence and what this means for the education of our young people, the housing crisis, and so much more that raises concerns in our lives. The risen Jesus wants to renew our spirits, like he wanted to renew the spirits of the two disciples on the way to Emmaus. Before Jesus accompanied them on their journey, their spirits had grown old. The two disciples were disappointed and disillusioned after Jesus was crucified. They were downcast, the Gospel tells us. They told Jesus, whom they did not recognise, "We were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel." Notice the past tense. They were hoping. So that they had lost that hope. They had been Jesus' disciples and had believed he was a powerful prophet. But with his crucifixion, they thought his mission had failed. They were experiencing a crisis of faith, a loss of hope. That's why they left Jerusalem. Why stay? The only one who had put their hope there, who they had put their hope in, was dead. They had lost their youthfulness of spirit. We can say they were dispirited. But this man who joined them on the road, whom they did not recognise, changed that. The risen Jesus explained the scriptures to them, including the prophets, the passage that spoke about how the Messiah would suffer and then enter into his glory. Their spirits were touched by the interpretation of the scriptures that Jesus was providing to them. They were also touched so much so that they urged Jesus to stay with them that evening. As they would say to each other later, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" Their eyes were being opened to the truth about Jesus and what happened on Calvary. Their faith and their hope was being renewed. And of course, the climax of that wonderful encounter with Jesus came when at table in the evening, Jesus took bread, said the blessing, broke it and gave it to them. Then their eyes were truly opened and they recognised him. In the Lucan description of their journey and meeting Jesus on the road to Emmaus, Jesus explains the scriptures. One could say he led them through a faith development opportunity. He wants to join us on our journey as knights. He wants to accompany us as individuals on our personal journeys. We can encounter him on the journey to Emmaus by listening to his word through the sacred scriptures. Some of the faithful have shared with me that during the kind of coronavirus times of no public liturgies, they have spent more time reading and praying with the scriptures. This has revived their spirits. They have experienced the Lord's presence and grace at the table of his word. That's been a kind of unexpected grace for them as they long to return to Mass. One man told me he had discovered the scriptures during these past several months. I asked him about this and he told me. And I told him, but we have always listened to the scriptures at Mass. In fact, the first half of the Mass is the liturgy of the Word. He agreed, but he told me that now he's meditating more on the scriptures than he used to. I hope and pray that others are also using the time to encounter the Lord more deeply by reading and praying the scriptures. As I mentioned, the climax of the Emmaus story was indeed when Jesus sat with the two disciples at table and broke bread. The climax of our journey is also when we participate in the table of the Eucharist. There our spirit is nourished in the most profound way by the body and blood of Christ. Like the two disciples, we recognise Jesus in the breaking of bread. Our faith is nourished by the Word of God and by his real presence in the Eucharist. Our youthfulness of spirit is renewed. I invite you as individuals and as knights to relive the experience of the disciples of Emmaus and to open yourselves to the grace of that transforming encounter with the risen Lord. May we, like those two disciples, plead with Jesus, "Stay with us, Lord." May the Lord bless us with renewed youthfulness of spirit. May our hearts burn within us as we read and pray with the scriptures. And may we continue to gather at the table where we recognise the Lord in the breaking of bread. Dear friends, the risen Lord is ever present in our midst. He walks with us on our journey to Emmaus. He guides us and opens our eyes. He has the power to do this. He gives us the grace to believe and to hope. And when we open our hearts to him, he frees us from fear and despair. Father, in him, transform us and fill us with God's love. That's what gives the meaning to our lives.